The Green Lantern Corps has been an ever-present fixture in DC Comics since its creation in September 1959. Brought to life by the team of John Broome and Gil Kane, this intergalactic peacekeeping force has entertained and enamoured audiences for 6 decades, infusing the classic superhero archetype with a unique and cutting-edge form of science fiction. Through the many heroes who have worn the iconic ring over the years, the Green Lanterns have been a massive part of the DC universe, serving as our gateway into the cosmic and interstellar corners of the company's storytelling and introducing us to countless new worlds, characters and concepts. However, there is undisputably no hero more synonymous with this team than Hal Jordan. Although not the first Green Lantern, Jordan has become the flagship hero of the Corps and one of DC's most popular characters in the 64 years since his initial creation. But despite Jordan's decades of heroism, whether it be as a Lantern, a founding member of the Justice League, or through his longtime partnership with other heroes like Green Arrow, the story of his fall is arguably just as fascinating and intriguing as that of his rise. You see, in the mid-1990s, following the aftermath of the death of Superman, DC attempted to turn the long-standing hero into the vengeful antagonist Parallax. This storyline, known as Emerald Twilight, was written by Ron Marz and completely shook the Green Lantern status quo to its very core, with Hal being pushed to his breaking point before betraying his fellow Lanterns, turning evil and introducing a brand new hero, Kyle Rayner, to take over the Green Lantern mantle in his place. Emerald Twilight remains today one of the most shocking Green Lantern tales of all time, and is a story that still has major ramifications across many aspects of the DC Comics universe today. It's a deeply intriguing story both in regards to how it occurred on the printed page and the real world tales of what happened behind the scenes. And in this video, I want to explain the origin of how Emerald Twilight came to be, discuss the real world history that led to this dramatic change in Hal Jordan's status quo and the creation of Kyle Rayner, and how this shocking comic book storyline not only broke Green Lantern, but ultimately paved the way for its new dawn. Before we continue though, just a quick reminder to leave a like on this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to Owen Likes Comics so you don't miss out on any future videos. So, in order to explain what makes Emerald Twilight such a significant story and how it changed the Green Lantern mythos forever, I think it's first worth discussing just how this storyline came to be. You see, in December of 1992, DC Comics began their ambitious plan to kill Superman, uniting a team of their biggest writers, artists and editors to work together on telling an era-defining story for the company. Running throughout much of 1993 and being featured in the pages of 7 different comics, this shocking event, which saw the Man of Tomorrow be slain by the monstrous Doomsday before his eventual resurrection, quickly became one of the most talked about and publicised comic book stories in years. The issue where the hero tragically dies, Superman issue 75, sold over 6 million copies worldwide and became the best-selling comic book of 1992. And with this nearly unprecedented level of success and exposure by the mainstream press, DC naturally sought to capitalise on it by enacting other major status quo changes, as well as building off the story of Superman's demise and how it affects those associated with him. One of these characters caught in the crossfires of Superman's death was Green Lantern. In an attempt to revitalise interest in the character, DC had been planning to tell a story arc that would climax in Green Lantern issue 50, which would see Hal Jordan discover a second set of Guardians and have to determine which in fact were real. According to the November 1993 edition of Comics Scoreboard, the storyline would have seen Hal caught up in a battle raging between 2 equally powerful groups of the Guardians of the Universe, where Jordan and his side eventually lose and the new group of Guardians take control of the Lantern Corps and appoint Sinestro as its new leader. However, not long before this story was set to begin in Green Lantern issue 48, DC editorial made the decision to scrap it entirely, believing it to be too uninteresting to attract new readers in the aftermath of the death of Superman. Instead, the company instructed a team of senior writers and editors, including Mike Carlin, Paul Levitt, Denny O'Neil, and Archie Goodwin, to come up with a new story that would be as significant for the Lantern Corps as the death of Superman was for the Man of Steel. Over the span of just a few days, this team came up with the basic tenets of what would later become known as Emerald Twilight, conceiving a story where Hal Jordan would turn against the Guardians and his fellow Lanterns following the destruction of his home, Coast City, becoming a villain under a new name and allowing the company to create a brand new character to carry the Green Lantern series forward. After this idea was fleshed out, the duty of writing it was handed to Ron Mars, who in a 2003 interview with CBR detailed how he was tasked with helming this unexpected story. He states that,
I got a call late on a Friday night offering me the book. I'd actually been down in New York for the day at the Marvel offices. I came home, my wife and I went out for a quick dinner, and then I guess around 9 o'clock the phone rang and it was Kevin Dooley offering me the job. Kevin said he wanted me to take over GL because the book needed a fresh direction. I was excited because I'd always thought that Hal was a pretty cool character, and I loved that costume. And then the other shoe dropped. Kevin explained what was planned, essentially removing Hal from the book and replacing him with a GL that I would make up. Pretty serious stuff. I actually begged off and took about a week before I accepted it. I knew it was a great opportunity, a rare chance to really change the course of the book, but I also knew it would come with an immense amount of baggage. I obviously ended up jumping in with both feet though.
Aware of just how big a project this was, Mars was both anxious and excited about the opportunity to tell the tale of Jordan's fall from grace, and how it would change the Green Lantern series going forward. While the framework of Emerald Twilight was already laid out for him, and he only had 3 issues to execute such a dramatic change, Mars also had the chance to etch his name in comic book history, telling what would likely become one of the most memorable Green Lantern stories of all time, for better or for worse, as well as creating the brand new hero that would carry the Green Lantern series in the aftermath of Hal's betrayal. As news of DC's plans for this series began to surface, anticipation and trepidation both ran high amongst comic fans. Would such a daring and provocative plan actually succeed, or would this last-minute attempt to drive one of DC's biggest heroes into darkness only serve to alienate long-time readers? All would finally be answered on the 10th of January 1994, when Green Lantern issue 48 hit shelves and the fate of the Emerald Knight would be changed forever. Although Green Lantern issue 48 is the official first chapter of the Emerald Twilight saga, the setup for this story actually occurs in issue 46, as well as in the pages of the Superman series. You see, following Clark's death at the hands of Doomsday, several imposters emerged, all claiming to be the real Superman. One of them was Hank Henshaw, a former astronaut turned cyborg supervillain who poses as the Man of Tomorrow in order to enact a plan for global domination. Teaming up with longtime Superman villain Mongol, Henshaw plans to destroy several major cities across the United States and transform them into Engine Cities, a dark replica of Mongol's home, Warworld. In Superman issue 80, the duo's evil plan is successful, as they blow up Hal Jordan's hometown and kill everyone within Coast City. After the real Superman's resurrection in the following issue, he and Hal alongside Supergirl and Superboy team up to stop Mongol and the Cyborg. However, for Green Lantern, the damage had already been done. As such, Green Lantern issue 48 picks up immediately after Hal and Superman's defeat of the villains, with Jordan lying in the rubble of his former home. Stricken by grief and blaming himself for being unable to stop what had happened, Hal uses his ring to recreate Coast City as a projection, first creating visions of his parents before reforging the entire city. As Hal walks through the streets of the construct, we begin to see that all isn't well with the Emerald hero. This feeling is amplified when his ring suddenly loses power and the projection fades all around him, leaving Hal with nothing but rubble and heartbreak. While a distraught Jordan processes this immense loss, he's met by a vision of one of the Guardians of the Universe, who explains that due to him using the ring for personal gain, Hal has violated the Green Lantern Oath and must return to Oa to return his ring. Shocked at the callousness of the Guardians, Hal destroys the projection, absorbing its energy and uses it to travel to Oa, with the intention of confronting the Guardians and seeking retribution. As Hal embarks on his journey to Oa, he's confronted by a fleet of lanterns sent by the Guardians, who instruct their longtime friend to peacefully surrender. Refusing to listen though, Jordan instead attacks the lanterns, incapacitating all of them and stealing their rings. Hal works his way through many familiar faces in the Corps, including his former mentor and longtime friend Kilowog. Eventually though, after defeating the lanterns, the Guardians are left with no choice but to unleash the only man capable of defeating Hal, his arch enemy and former lantern turned villain, Sinestro. Escaping his captivity in the central power battery, Sinestro taunts Hal's downfall. The two fight, with Sinestro proving to be the most capable foe Hal has faced so far. However, Jordan overcomes him and, in a final act of defiance, snaps Sinestro's neck and kills him. As the Guardians watch on in disgust, Kilowog returns and attempts to reason with Hal. However, the former hero is too blinded by rage to listen, and instead, he obliterates Kilowog with his ring. Realization quickly sinks in of what Hal has done, and with the Guardians now confronting him, he chooses to double down on his villainous turn and flies directly into the central power battery, absorbing the entire power of the core and causing an explosion that kills almost all of the Guardians. When he resurfaces, Hal is now more powerful than ever before, and transforms his costume to reflect his new demeanour. Hal leaves Oa in ruins. However, we discover that Ganther, one of the Guardians, has somehow still survived, and uses the last of his power to create one final Green Lantern ring and sends it out into the universe, desperate to find someone to wield it. The ring travels all the way to Earth and interrupts civilian Kyle Rayner as he's exiting a nightclub. Fixated by its mysterious green aura, Kyle puts the ring on and he's suddenly met by a vision of Ganthert, who deems him worthy to represent the Corps. Ganthert disappears as Kyle suddenly transforms into the iconic Green Lantern costume, setting in motion the beginning of a new generation. Following the shocking conclusion of Green Lantern issue 50, a new status quo for the series would be established throughout the next 5 issues. This storyline, commonly referred to as A New Dawn, would focus largely on establishing Kyle Rayner as both the new protagonist of the series and the last remaining member of the Green Lantern Corps. Released in May of 1994, issue 51 picks up immediately after Emerald Twilight's conclusion, with Kyle discovering the ring's powers and transforming into a lantern. He immediately travels to see his former girlfriend, Alexandra DeWitt, and the two devise a plan to travel to New York, where he'll serve as the city's new protector while she works as his official photographer. Before they do though, Kyle is alerted to a sighting of a supervillain named Ohm, rampaging throughout the streets of Los Angeles. Kyle powers up and confronts Ohm, and despite still being inexperienced and unsure of how to use his powers, his willpower and durability allows him to defeat the villain. As Alex watches on taking shots of Kyle's heroics, the two travel to a local beach, where Kyle transforms his costume from the traditional Green Lantern suit into a sleek, all-new design. As this is all going on, we learn that Mongol has escaped prison and declared his intentions to seek revenge on both Superman and the Green Lantern. Mongol ambushes Kyle while he's testing his powers out on the beach, beating the hero senselessly while not even realising he's a different Lantern to Hal Jordan. Alex attempts to intervene to no avail, and Mongol prepares to kill the young hero before he's suddenly saved by Superman. Superman and Green Lantern work together to defeat Mongol, and it's here that we see a bond between the two heroes start to develop. However, Kyle's tribulations wouldn't actually end here, as on the final page of issue 53, we discover that a secret government agency is investigating him, having found a mysterious green rock in the site where he became a Green Lantern, with the villainous Major Force tasked with apprehending him and retrieving the ring. Throughout much of issue 54, we see Major Force stalking Kyle and tracking down his whereabouts. Major Force strikes while Kyle is out on patrol, breaking into his house and attacking Alex. When Kyle returns home, he discovers Alex murdered and stuffed inside the fridge, and as he processes this, Major Force attacks him from behind. Driven almost entirely by rage, Kyle attempts to fight back, blasting the villain with his ring, only for it to run out of energy for the first time ever. This allows Major Force to fight back and overpower Kyle. As Kyle is pummeled, the villain interrogates him about the glowing rock, not realising that this rock was in fact a disguised power battery. and as he holds it in front of Kyle, the hero is able to recharge his ring and continue the fight. Now restored with the powers of the Green Lantern, Kyle is able to defeat Major Force, but is stopped from killing him when the police arrive and take him into custody. Sometime later, we see Kyle sat atop a rooftop, breaking down in tears mourning Alex's death. When he eventually returns home though, he discovers another mysterious figure there waiting for him, Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern. Alan introduces himself to Kyle and explains the history of the Lantern Corps. Although Kyle tells Alan that he can't be good enough to be a hero after failing to save Alex, Alan tells him the story of Hal Jordan, from his humble beginnings all the way to his tragic defection. He states that Hal will eventually return, and when he does, he will need to be stopped, and that Kyle, as the final custodian of the Lantern Corps, must be ready to confront him when he does. As Alan vanishes, Kyle reflects on everything he's heard, returning to the rooftop where he vows to continue his heroics as Green Lantern, now in Alex's memory, becoming the hero she knew he could be. This foreshadowing of a battle between Kyle and Hal, now known under the alias of Parallax, would come to fruition in September 1994, in the form of the crossover event 0 Hour: A Crisis in Time. The brainchild of Dan Jurgens and Jerry Ordway, this 4-part story would see Hal attempt to remake the entire universe in an effort to undo Coast City's annihilation. With the help of Extant, a future version of Hank Hall aka Hawk, the villain's master plan begins, as the barriers of space and time start to erode and different timelines bleed into one another. Realising the danger this faces, Superman unites a team of heroes to stop Hal, with the Man of Tomorrow asking Kyle to use his ring to broadcast a call for help to all of Earth's heroes. Kyle remains by Superman's side as he unites the Justice League and the JSA to fight Parallax, with Kyle eventually coming face to face with the former Lantern and being instrumental in stopping his evil plan. The climax of 0 Hour sees Parallax be confronted by a massive team of heroes, many of which are former friends and allies of Hal, where the villain explains his new worldview and how his plans to remake the universe would be for the better. It's during this monologue that Kyle first attempts to ambush Hal, but Parallax's power proves too strong and he easily defeats him. However, Kyle would return during the final fight, wrestling Parallax into position and allowing Green Arrow to shoot his former friend and seemingly kill him. With Hal defeated, the Spectre instructs the young hero Damage to exude a massive amount of energy, triggering a new Big Bang that restores the universe to its rightful balance. While the entire universe flashes white though, Hal and Kyle both disappear, and when the dust settles, both men are nowhere to be found. The fate of these two characters would be revealed the following month, in the one-shot comic Green Lantern issue 0. Here, both Kyle and Hal wake up on Oa, and immediately continue their fight. Using the central power battery to recharge himself, Parallax initially overpowers Kyle, before he's distracted by the discovery of Kilowog's skull. Seeing the remains of his former best friend, Hal starts to lament how, despite his immense power, he wasn't able to save those that he loved. And it's here that Kyle actually attempts to comfort and reason with him, explaining how he failed to save Alex and that both men are bonded by their failings. However, Kyle's attempt to empathise with Hal falls on deaf ears, as the villain maintains that his path to redemption can only be achieved through remaking the entire universe, and instead, he asks Kyle to side with him, even offering to resurrect Alex in the process. Despite being tempted, Kyle ultimately refuses, and realising that Hal can't be reasoned with, he's forced to plunge his ring deep into Oa's core and destroy the planet altogether, making the source of Parallax's power no more. Kyle flies into space as Oa is submerged in a green explosion, and believing Hal to finally be dead, he leaves Oa's ruins behind him and journeys back to Earth, vowing to learn from the mistakes of his predecessors and accepting his responsibility as the one and only Green Lantern. Throughout 1993 and 1994, the world of Green Lantern was changed forever. Via the events of Emerald Twilight, A New Dawn and 0 Hour, the team's status quo was drastically overhauled and updated for a new generation, with Kyle Rayner serving as the fresh new face to lead the series into a new age of prosperity. Green Lantern issue 0 marks the end of this transition between the two eras, with Kyle's battle with Parallax serving as a passing of the torch moment, cementing the new lead character as a worthy successor to Hal Jordan. In the aftermath of this story, Kyle would continue on as the main Green Lantern, with the series largely being written by Ron Marz until the summer of 2000. During this period, Kyle would also become a founding member of an all-new version of the Justice League, with Grant Morrison and Howard Porter looking to restore the ensemble to their former glory in the JLA series that began in early 1997. But as Kyle continued to cement his place in the DC universe, Hal Jordan would return in the November 1996 miniseries Final Night, where with all life in the universe being threatened by the Sun Eater, he sacrifices himself in order to reignite the sun. Hal's redemption in his final moments would serve as a heartfelt and fitting culmination to this ambitious 3-year saga. Despite his descent into darkness, Jordan would unmistakably die a hero, being remembered by his friends as a man who overcame his demons and reminded them of what it means to be a hero. While Final Night aimed to be the last chapter in Hal Jordan's story, many longtime fans of the character sought for him to be redeemed and brought back. DC initially attempted to find a middle ground in 1999, when, as part of the Day of Judgment crossover, Hal became the new host for The Spectre. Even though Hal remained the Spectre for several years, the desire for the hero to return as Green Lantern never went away. Eventually, Geoff Johns resurrected Hal in the 2004 miniseries Green Lantern Rebirth, building off the work of writer Judd Winnick, whose run on Green Lantern had seen Kyle grow even more powerful and adopt the new name Ion, using his newfound power to revive the Guardians, and drawing inspiration from Darwyn Cooke's The New Frontier. Johns and artist Ethan Van Sciver devised a 6-part story that would resurrect Jordan, acquit him of his crimes, and see the reformation of the Lantern Corps. Speaking with CBR in May of 2020, the writer discussed the original ideas behind Green Lantern Rebirth and his intentions for bringing back both Hal Jordan and the more traditional Green Lantern status quo. He states,
I think Green Lantern was struggling to find its voice. It had fallen down and disappeared a little bit. And I remember they came to me and they said, do you like Hal Jordan? Would you be interested in writing a story where he comes back? And there were these ideas floating around about killing this character or that character, and I said, look, if I do Green Lantern, I want to bring everything back. It's not just about Hal, but it's about the core, which was gone, and about Guy Gardner and John Stewart and Kyle Rayner and all that stuff. I wanted to bring back the intergalactic aspect of it and make it bigger and different and unique among the DC books because I think Green Lantern is that. It's really a very inspiring universe to live in, and these characters are fun and different and diverse. So Green Lantern Rebirth wasn't just about Hal Jordan, although he takes front and center. It was about the entire canvas and backdrop of Hal Jordan's universe and the Green Lantern universe that I wanted to bring back.
Alongside bringing back the Green Lantern Corps, Rebirth explains that Parallax was actually a cosmic entity that possessed Hal after the destruction of Coast City, exonerating Jordan of all of his crimes. In the aftermath of Rebirth, which saw Johns tell several iconic Green Lantern stories, such as the Sinestro Corps War and Blackest Night, Hal Jordan once again became the series' main character. Even though Rebirth restored the team to its classic status quo, Emerald Twilight still holds a pivotal place in the history of DC Comics and is still one of the most important Green Lantern stories ever. Not only did this shocking twist help revitalize interest in the title, but it also created 2 characters who played significant roles in the next decade of storytelling, Kyle Rayner and Parallax. As someone who got into comics in the early to mid 2000s, Kyle was the first Green Lantern that I ever encountered on the printed page. And now looking back, I think he was a much needed addition to the series and represents the everyman better than almost any other member of the Corps. Kyle's stories, particularly in his origin, add a real sense of relatability to this otherwise fantastical and otherworldly concept. Moreover, while the trope of heroes going bad has become somewhat overused today, Hal Jordan's defection was unlike anything ever seen in DC Comics before. Because we had followed him for so long as a hero, we understood his pain and grief towards losing Coast City, and how that heartbreak drove him to become Parallax. Hal's story in this period is one of tragedy, and his inability to let go and forgive himself for what happened provided a fitting parallel for Kyle Rayner to follow, particularly after Alex's death. While this period of storytelling wasn't without its flaws, with Alex's death at the hands of Major Force highlighting the poor treatment of female supporting characters at this time, and becoming the namesake for the trope of killing a female love interest off just to advance a male hero's story, overall I find Emerald Twilight and its aftermath to be one of the most daring, bold and ambitious periods in all of Green Lantern history. The notion of destroying everything fans knew and loved about Hal Jordan just to relaunch the series with a brand new protagonist seemed destined to fail from the very beginning. And yet, thanks to the work that Ron Mars and his collaborators put into these stories, Emerald Twilight developed from a story designed to break Green Lantern to the new dawn the series needed to evolve and reinvent itself. In short, the saga of Emerald Twilight is one that's had a tremendous impact on the comic book industry and the world of Green Lantern ever since it was first told. It gave the once stagnant series an exciting new hero, who carried the torch for many years, made Hal Jordan one of the most significant characters in the entire universe again, and provided an exciting new pathway for new fans to discover this exciting corner of DC Comics. Beyond all of that though, it's a story that reminds us that the heroes we look up to are human too, and just like us, they can all lose their way when the weight of the world simply gets too much. It shows us that even our greatest superheroes struggle to overcome fear, guilt and regret, but by letting go of these concerns and believing in hope, compassion and a brighter future, we can all ultimately move beyond our darkest moments and become the best versions of ourselves. Above all else, I believe that to be the message of this series, both in the origin of Kyle Rayner and the fall and redemption of Hal Jordan. And it's what, in my opinion, makes this period of storytelling so fantastic, and what makes Emerald Twilight one of the most impactful and memorable Green Lantern stories ever told. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on this video and leave a comment down below as well. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about in today's video. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as always. If you're new to Owen Likes Comics, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you enjoyed this and you want some more, there should be some other videos on screen right now that you might also enjoy. If you want to help support the channel and help me make more videos, you can do so over at patreon.com/OwenLikesComics. Or if you just want some more of me, you can follow me on Twitter just at OwenLikesComics. But that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll see you next time. But until then, take care and keep reading.